I've never made gumbo before. I can do it though. And before I start showing y'all what I'm doing, please don't get in the comment section telling me how your auntie or your grandma near make gumbo. My first time making this, how I'm choosing to do it.
You know, making gumbo made me think about a metaphor around class consciousness. And it also reminded me of when I first came across a criticism of capitalism, how it changed my life. You know what I'm saying? I'll never forget this. It was this white boy named Paul Eicher that was also a debater on the University of Oklahoma debate team. Then in the black community, all we know is like hustle, hustle, hustle. You really colorblind and you doing it on like some capitalism, you know what I'm saying? Class reductionist type. You might say the only color I care about is green. Paul Eicher was the first person to tell me that capitalism was dehumanizing. I think that was the first time I got a little bit of taste of class consciousness. Taste like this gumbo that's looking very amazing. You know what I'm saying? In many different ways, the different ingredients you put inside of a gumbo, it really represents the ways that different classes are able to come together. But when we think about class consciousness, a lot of those arbitrary ideas about the middle class, about, you know what I'm saying, poor people and upper people, it's like those things kind of become much more simplified. A lot of us really look at, you know, basketball players and NBA players, NFL players as being a part of the ruling class, when in actuality, they just coveted high-paid workers. You know what I'm saying? When I started getting into criticisms of capitalism, especially as a debater, and started getting into Marxism, I started peeping game that a lot of times is really just the working class, the proletariat, and the ruling class, the bourgeoisie. A lot of times, folks really get lost in the sauce of being able to engage in class reductionism, which would be the same as me boiling down the entire gumbo taste to like the root or the shrimp or the freshness of, you know what I'm saying, the crab. You feel me? Though all those things can impact the overall taste, we know that it's the culmination of all these things that make together, you feel me, the gumbo. It's almost like class consciousness, you know what I'm saying, or class solidarity within class consciousness, you feel me? Once I start peeping game that no matter how many dollars I had, them folks over yonder way were still able to control the means of production, it really changed my whole relationship towards how I thought about money. Especially when you start thinking of the propaganda that's within the capitalist system that teaches us that the reason why socialism fails because it's bad. They don't tell us about how a lot of CIA, a lot of capitalist entities, you feel me, literally will invest militaristic, you feel me, tactics to make sure that socialism falls. You know, when you do the research and think about all the ways that the American government uniquely has caused instability in South America, it all has to do with socialism versus capitalism, which is why the white man Karl Marx was kind of cooking. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm cooking this gumbo right now. You know what I mean? This is actually my first time ever making gumbo. And I'm kind of, you know, they kind of say like, you should never be experimenting on holidays because people might get there and be pissed off. Well, I'm here to tell you, though, this is my first time making gumbo. Shit was jumping. You know what I'm saying? You're going to see that towards the end of the video when my family members is trying out the gumbo. But, you know, listen, man, when I first started thinking very critically about capitalism is when I was a black debater. You feel me? Of course, black debate, I'm black. But when I was a debater talking about race and racism and white supremacy and how there would usually be some white hippie team from like Missouri or some random place in Texas or from the East Coast or West Coast tell me that the most important thing I have to focus on is capitalism and that every single one of my problems, the root of it is capitalism. Though they may have some merit in it, I was able to get more into like criticisms of how, you know, the proletariat and the bourgeoisie are both able to buy a slave. You know what I'm saying? I started getting into different ways of how we view labor and how we're able to value labor and how everybody's labor ain't valued the same. And how even when you want to look at, you know, America through a capitalist lens, all about, you know what I'm saying, money, all about class, that you will always can recognize the uniqueness of how black labor and white labor and other people's labor is situated on an unlevel playing field. Especially when you start thinking about the ways that, you know, a black person being able to work the same job as a white person with the same accolades, the same background may mean that they are paid less on the dollar than that person is, all based on how we literally value different folks, you know what I'm saying, labor. Just like, you know, y'all be not from New Orleans or not from the South and y'all be having soup and y'all call it gumbo and we be looking at y'all down South, especially folks in New Orleans like, you said that was what now? That's not no gumbo, baby. That's stew. That's some soup, you feel me? Or you ain't put no roux in that, which means it's stew or some soup, you feel me? But I digress. Ways, the end of the gumbo illustrates how class solidarity works because you have the multiplicity of different ingredients and substances that are able to contribute to an overall flavor. You know what I mean? And when you think about the ways that different socialist individuals and movements have been demonized in this country, I think that it all shows and points to there being people that always already want to push back against class solidarity. Think about how the media responded when that dude Luigi went on and, you know what I'm saying, wrote on that CEO from United Healthcare. The we are seeing that there are different people that want to uphold, you feel me, respectability politics, and uphold, you feel me, there being legitimate ways to be able to take somebody's life and legitimate ways to be able to take somebody's life. Because think about it. When this healthcare CEO is denying care that literally is able to keep somebody alive, he's not seen as a murderer. He's doing it to literally millions of people. But Luigi run up on this and pop up in broad daylight, that's seen as a more egregious instance of taking somebody's life that cannot be accepted. But you not being able to afford healthcare, that's your fault. You know what I'm saying? This is all having to do with class solidarity. I'm not even think about this, man. While you paying attention to me making this gumbo, let's really think about how we live in a attention economy, especially thinking about the concepts like capital and labor around how Marxists introduced this idea about, you know what I'm saying, being able to overcome the class struggle. We live in an attention economy. The way that you give attention to somebody, whether you give them time, effort, or energy, that turns into capital. Capitalism is all about being able to alienate the worker away from his labor to make it where you have a surplus of labor or a surplus of capital to make sure you have a surplus of profit. Am I saying that right? We think about the attention economy and living on social media and people being able to get the likes and the views, it always leads to a little bit of mobility. A lot of y'all would not know me if it wasn't for the capital that I was able to get from the attention that folks gave me. You know what I'm saying? And this whole idea about the attention economy, think about the ways that we're able to exploit people's attention at the expense of their livelihood. And think about the ways that people are able to exploit people's attention and literally fold it into capital for themselves uniquely. Gumbo look good, don't it? Comment section, if this metaphor about class consciousness makes sense to y'all. You know what I'm saying? I'm definitely open to all criticism. Education is elevation. Hey, have you been to my website lately? Consciouslee.com. If you're looking to get into any type of, you know, workshop facilitations, keynotes, go to that right there and holler at my team. Back to this conversation though about class consciousness and gumbo, man. Tastes good when you can see the thickness of the roux and it don't look like stew, it don't look like soup. You also know that the gumbo is doing good when somebody walk into the house and they can smell the aroma. You understand me? Smell it. See, class consciousness can be metaphorically explained by using the process of making homemade gumbo, which reflects the intersection of class solidarity while also addressing criticisms of class reductionism, because I can't stand when y'all act like all people are only positioned by their class status and not like gender or sexuality or ability comes into question. We start valuing labor and or start viewing people and how they position within the working class, because ain't nothing I hate more than somebody insulting my intelligence. For some reason, a lot of, you know, Marxists or, you know, white leftists that think about capitalism and Marxism usually think that us black folks don't understand how money works. The people that were seen as property, you don't think we understand the important concepts around private property? When I was growing up, I heard that, you know, it was like one of the, I think it was FDR that give credit for creating the middle class. But what I think is that the middle class is a manufactured concept that allows for the bourgeoisie to make it where people that's doing a little bit better than the people that's extremely poor to make it where they don't focus on the ruling class, to make it where poor people and middle class people are beefing with each other. The middle class folks think that the poor people trying to come up on them, you feel me? And poor people feel like middle class folks trying to keep us poor. You know what I'm saying? And all that though, we see that the criticisms towards the ruling class and how they both are able to make money off our labor, we never get to that point. That's the reason why I think that TikTok is being forced to be sold, because it was starting to raise too much class consciousness. And what you don't want is people that working as poor starting to recognize the commonality within their struggle, because now the people that's not counting with us, they know we looking at that. Just as the ingredients contributes to the overall flavors of gumbo, each member of the working class brings unique experiences and perspective that enrich the collective identity. Class solidarity emerges when individuals recognize that despite their little old differences, whether in background, job type, or lived experiences, on my mama, they share the common interests in challenging the power structures that oppress them. It almost is like, this is the reason why I believe that Fred Hampton was seen as such a danger to the establishment, because he was teaching class solidarity along the lines of race and making it where, you know, white power to the white people, black power to the black people. I'm gonna have that clip in here, we're gonna show it to you, but this is the reason why I believe he had to be caned for.
Capitalism. If we don't hate the motherfucker white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. We're going to fight racism, not racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We said we're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. everything would be all right.
Develop solidarity amongst working class people. They need us fighting with each other. You know what I'm saying? It's like in this gumbo. We need to almost have it where, you feel me, the onions is too much and it's overpowering, you know what I'm saying, the taste of the shrimp. We don't want that. We want to have us a nice little reciprocity. You feel me? And how these flavors is hitting the tongue. You know what I'm saying? We want to make sure the palate is really being, satisfied. Nobody want no gumbo that has too much of one flavor in it and you can't get the combination of all the flavors. Gumbo requires time, patience. Somebody told me on social media though, they from New Orleans, that the way it took, how long it took me to make the roux was too long. Hey, I was stirring for about, I'm talking about like 2 hours. Oh my mama, I'm stirring for 2 hours. But people told me, you know what I'm saying, from New Orleans, like, man, it took me about 20 minutes to make that roux. You doing something wrong. What I tried to do though was, because I'm not experienced through expert, I tried to eyeball the vegetable oil and eyeball the flour, and that's how you make the roux, and I feel like that's where I messed up at. You know what I'm saying? Building class consciousness requires dialogue and teamwork amongst workers to realize their shared goals and aspirations. What I also know is that I hope in making this gumbo that my family is gonna be able to come over and we all gonna be able to enjoy this gumbo based out of love and solidarity. I'm playing, but I do hope they enjoy my though. That's made out of love, you know what I'm saying? Like made out of love, for real, for real. I'm just using this metaphor with y'all because, education is elevation. I really believe that. However, relying solely on the metaphor of gumbo can lead to class reductionism. The oversimplification of complex social ideas by focusing solely on class identity is something you shouldn't do at all. Just as gumbo can't be defined by its meat or its broth, social identity is multifaceted. It includes race, gender, and other intersections that influence the way us individuals not only have our lived experiences within this thing we call life, but also impact how we relate to each other, especially when we start thinking about value and is you worth my time? Is you worth my energy? Is it worth the effort to even try to, click with you? I think capitalism sometimes, it really pollutes the way that we view each other as humans. Class reductionism, it ignores the importance of these additional dimensions, reducing people to their own unique experiences to mere economic status. We know that black middle class people and white middle class people experience the economy in two different ways. We also know that, within America and throughout the world, there are various people that are experiencing poverty. You know what I'm saying? But we know that based off of how you're racialized, you might be positioned in poverty a whole different way. You know what I'm saying? I remember when I was in college and I started reading about the differences between poor people in poverty turns white and turns black, and recognizing that being seen as criminal already is a part of your class. Almost when I in debate, we used to argue that being black is a part of a class. You know what I'm saying? Because, hey, when we think about it, even going back to like the Bacon's Rebellion, you feel me? It was a reason why they were able to trick and bamboozle particular white folks and being like, hey, at least you're not them over there, because they knew class solidarity would end the way they're able to exploit labor and being able to aid the worker from his labor, they're able to flip into capital. In the name of education, I know that sometimes having multiple voice on a topic is able to, lead to you having a better understanding of it. So here goes the clip of somebody else explaining class consciousness in their own way.
The class consciousness in America is so bad that producers feel invincible. Because in what other world do you make 400 times the salary of the people that are striking for better wages, and your response is to chop all the tops of the trees off in front of your building so that those striking workers have to stand in the sun? You do not need to be an expert in landscaping to see that this is not the appropriate response to anything. Between this and anonymous producers saying that the plan is to just wait until the writers are so poor that they have to come back to the table and accept a terrible deal is just disgusting. It really shows you how little these people care about the folks making them their millions and millions of dollars. The longer I look at this image, the longer I look at these trees that were just absolutely destroyed to hurt a couple of people who are asking for fair wages for the millions and billions that they're producing for these studios. People who are just asking not to be replaced with AI because it's cheaper for the people who already make an obscene amount of money. These studios refuse to even negotiate about paying them their already too little amount of money on time. They literally rejected it as a part of the offer. That we can't be bothered to pay actors on time. It makes me so unreasonably angry. So unreasonably angry. Look at this. Look at it. You think they paid the guy that decimated these trees a fair wage? If seeing stuff like this and hearing about what is being denied by these studios doesn't set your blood on fire, I don't know what's wrong with you. Stop siding with people who look down and spit on you. Look, I understand that the education system has failed you, and that since Ronald Reagan hated unions so much that it just infiltrated the American psyche. But the only reason we have a weekend or a 40-hour work week or any of the benefits that you enjoy, like not having to work in a factory next to a child, although that is changing in a lot of places in America. All of those things happened because workers came together, collected their power, and demanded them. You should be paying very close attention to what the entertainment workers are doing and what UPS is planning to do next week, because it is going to affect the rest of America. Unless you have $1 billion in your bank account, you should be on their side. And if you do have $1 billion, you don't, because those sort of people don't interact with the poors. Burn this into your mind. This is what they think of us. Don't let them win.
The Gumbo metaphor about class consciousness can really illustrate how class reductionism, class solidarity, and us being able to see the means of production, how that shit all work. Yeah, education is elevation. I hope you was able to really see and be inspired of being able to make some gumbo, as well as being able to dig deeper when it comes to class consciousness, man.